So you're thinking about buying a property in Lake Hartwell, and you just thought that you could have whatever dock you wanted. You could have a bigger dock, you could have a fancier dock, heck, you could just have a dock. Well, if you didn't know already, not every home is eligible for a dock. There are specific zones, and those zones determine whether or not you can have a dock and the size of your dock, also the type of dock. So if you are thinking about owning a home on Lake Hartwell, I'm Tammy, and today I'm going to tell you about the zones on Lake Hartwell. Also, by the way, if you're thinking about moving to Lake Hartwell, whether it's 9 days, 9 months, or 9 years from now, well, 9 years is kind of a long time, but 9 days or 90 days, my team and I would love to help you learn more about the lake and the surrounding area. Of course, we'd love to connect with you. Zoom is our favorite way, but we can also do a phone call or a text message. So before you leave today, make sure that you tap the bell to subscribe. Stay tuned so you get all the updates on Lake Hartwell and the surrounding areas. But first, let's talk about the zones on Lake Hartwell. Okay, so you are ready to buy a lake home now. You see docks all the time, and you assume if there's water, you can have a dock, right? Not on Lake Hartwell. Okay, so let's first talk about the two primary goals of the United States Army Corps of Engineers. They are who control our beautiful Lake Hartwell. They have two goals, okay? First, protection. Two, recreation. Okay, so fun is second. How boring, right? But let's talk about protection. So there are 3 zones, and then there's a bonus round if you really want to geek out on this, okay? So you have green zone, yellow zone, red zone, and then the bonus round is orange zone. People don't usually talk about it. I'll tell you why in a second. All right, so green zone, for all like simple purposes, let's say most of the time, as in like 99% of the time, and I'll tell you the one time you can't, you can have a dock, okay? Now, there's more than just a dock, okay? That's a permanent structure, somewhat permanent structure. Water, power, underbrushing, there's a lot of things I need to explain to you. Those are things that you can have as well, but for the biggest understanding, like overarching thing to get today is if it's green zone, probably can have a dock, probably can use the property in all the ways you want to, okay? Yellow zone means no docking, but you can swim and you can beach watercraft. Beaching meaning like you have a kayak or canoe, you can use it for the day, you can tie it to a tree and leave it on your property for a couple of hours, then come back and get it, okay? Red zone means you can swim, but that is it. Orange zone is prohibited. Okay, now why do we have these zones? Why does the Corps care? Basically, red zone is property that is immediately around something like a state park. Now, let's use protection as our guide and say, why would we not want to do this? Well, let's say it's a state park and there's a protected water area for swimming and little kids are swimming. So what they don't want is all these people coming by with their speed boats and creating these big wakes, and then all these kids are just being tossed around, right? Now, obviously, boats can still go down these channels. That can still happen. However, if a home doesn't have a dock and they're not allowed to have their boat on their property, you're going to see fewer boats in those areas. So that's why they're red zone, because they want to make sure that in these parks and other areas that they're able to keep the wake down, keep it safe and protected, okay? Yellow zone means it's still close to that area. Not quite at that area, but close to that area. Green zone means, hey, we are away from those prohibited or protected areas. We feel this is the safest place on the water, so we know that you're going to bring your watercraft here, you're going to come in and out of the dock, and so we feel these are the best areas, so we're going to make them green zone. This will be posted below as well, but these are your zones, so if you should forget, this is the complicated way that the Army Corps of Engineers tells you what the zones are, but basically green is go. Yellow is no, but you can swim and kind of keep stuff there for a little while. Red is stop. Orange is strictly prohibited. It's basically Corps property, okay? Army Corps of Engineer property. When we are talking about zones, green zone, like I said, ordinarily means you will be approved for a dock. Now, you just heard the word approved. You have to apply for your permits every 5 years. Now, unless something nutso happens that I have not seen in my 4 decades on Lake Hartwell, okay? If you've been approved for a dock and you have a dock in place, you're going to continue to be approved for that dock every 5 years. Now, what could change that? I don't know. We have a crazy drought, crazier than we did in 2009, 10, 11, 12. If it were crazier than that, then potentially they wouldn't approve a dock because it might be a swamp at that time, right? So let's also talk about when it could be green zone and maybe not be approved for a dock. So there's a rule. There's lots of rules. There's another video about rules. Rules. They're actually for your protection. They're not so scary, but there are a lot of rules for permitting and for enjoying the lake. But one of the rules is that all docks have to be 50 feet apart. Okay, they can be further apart, but they can't be closer than 50 feet. Okay, so let's say, for instance, You buy a piece of land. You've not built your house yet. And today you call the Army Ranger and they say, yes, you're approved for a dock. And then there's 2 other lots beside you. They don't have docks either. They're also approved. Well, weather patterns change. Water's a little more shallow. This guy to your right gets a dock. This guy to the left gets a dock. Then you're like, oh, I think I want to get my dock now. And you go to apply. Well, in the process of these 2 guys on the outside getting approved, the Corps of Engineers said, water's a little shallow. We want you to come in a little bit, and we want you to turn. You're going to come in a little bit. This should be your placement. Well, guess what? Now there's not 50 feet between you and the docks on either side. So now they say, sorry, you can't have a dock anymore. So word to the wise. 1, always make sure you find out if you will get approval for a dock, okay? And if you buy a piece of land and there's not a dock installed, or if there's like a platform dock and you're told you would be approved for the maximum size dock, go ahead and get it immediately. Do not wait. That is a bad plan. You may not be approved later, and that would be such a bummer to pay the premium you would be paying for a green zone dockable lot to then find out it is not dockable. Big time bummer. Okay, while there are some people who will want to live on the lake and not ever have a dock, those people are far and few between. So it will affect your future resale value and your use. Obviously, you'd be majorly bummed if you couldn't have a dock all of a sudden, right? Okay, so for zones, for the most part, think safety. Hyper residential areas away from state parks and things like that, probably going to be green zone. You get a little closer to state park, bridges, things like that, you're going to find yellow zone. You're right outside of state park, boat ramps, things like that, red zone, okay? And then there's some special prohibited spaces, Army Corps of Engineers. You aren't trying to do anything there anyway. Lots aren't for sale. Houses aren't over there. And those particular areas. I'm in the South, but I don't actually have a Southern draw usually in those particular areas. So it's really important for you to understand zoning. It's really important for you to understand how that impacts your use on the lake. Now, what is the most expensive? Green zone. Because even if you don't want all of the perks that can come with green zone, people like knowing that they have options. So you're going to get approved for the greatest number of permits. Examples of permits would be for a dock, you know, for your boat, that you would be approved for some sort of path. Okay, so if you need like a cart path for, you know, getting down to the water safely, or, you know, it could be gravel, it could be mulch, it could be any variety of materials, not any. There's a certain number, okay? Underbrushing. If you haven't watched my whole video on like rules and things you can do, so underbrushing means that basically it all stays natural, but they would let you basically cut down trees that were less than 4 inches diameter at the base. Other like little shrubby things like that, you can cut them back. And then trees, you can limb up 1/3 the tree's height. Now, if the tree is tiny, okay, you can only do 1/3 of the height. But if it's really, really tall, you can do 1/3 the height, or up to 18 feet, whichever comes first, okay? And they do that so you can safely get to the water. Just so happens it usually gives a better view as well, although the Corps doesn't care about your view. We care about having a view of the water. They don't care if we have one. They really just care if we get there safely, okay? But you can apply for an underbrushing permit. We have potable water, so you can have water at the dock, power at the dock, a power pole as well. So these are other permits that you can have if you want a second level on a dock, potentially if you can get approved for that. So all of these things are specific permits that you would have to have, but when you're a green zone, you can apply or ask if you're able to have all of these. If you're yellow zoned, you're not going to get those. You might get approved for underbrushing. Usually that's the only one you're going to get approved for. And red zone, not a zip zilch, but enjoy swimming in the lake. So understand your zones. We're going to take a closer look at these shortly, but make sure you understand if you are looking at a green zone, yellow zone, or red zone home. Okay, so I mentioned that there's some permits that you can apply for, so we're going to take a look at a few of those today. Now, I can't show you where the trees are marked. I'll have to show you that another day because here they are deep in the woods. Now, I want you to notice there are a lot of woods over here. Not a lot of woods right here, not a lot of woods over there. So this is an example of when you would apply for an underbrush permit. And if approved, you can actually go and take down all of the limbed tree, like the baby limbs, and even this could be cleared up over here, the base of any tree that's under 4 inches in diameter. So this is an example of something that's been underbrushed. Now this is just lucky. This is really good Corps property. And what that means is the Corps line is close to the water. So these people have a nice long yard that they can take advantage of,
with all this lush green grass. And so what has happened is, because Bermuda is a grass that just grows like crazy, over time the Bermuda has naturally grown closer to the water. Now you'll see down the water there is some debris. That's stuff that we would leave there and let it naturally occur. But also you'll see, kind of fortunate, not a lot of trees, because again it's this short core line, and then with this short core line we are every 18 feet on center with a tree, but you don't have to have a lot of trees because you don't have a lot of core line. Then this is an example of an improved path. Sorry if I'm making you seasick here, but you'll see that it's stamped on grade. You can have gravel, there are different types you can have, but this is a cart path. It would have to be painted in earth tone. And then you're going to also see that we have a light pole down here that's approved, and there's a downcast. There's all types of rules, like they have a screen so it casts the light down. You'll see that there's water down here at this light pole, and that's also approved. So there's power and water at the dock. The dock has a 60-foot approved gangwalk. That's a maximum size dock gangwalk you can have, and it actually is approved for the maximum size dock, although that is not the largest dock you can have. But when you are getting approved for a dock, that includes the boat slip square footage as well as a boat lift or anything else that might be attached. So these are some of the examples of the things you can apply for permits for if you are green zoned on Lake Hartwell.
Okay, zoning rules. So we have covered those very thoroughly. So now you know, whether you're buying land or a house that doesn't have a dock, you're going to want to find out, what is the zone and does that matter to you? Also, when you're choosing to buy a property, maybe you don't care about a dock or beaching a boat, so maybe you can do red zone and it'll be a lot more affordable, but you'll be close to the lake and be able to swim, but maybe not take on the cost of a yellow or green zone property. Also, there are lots of rules on the lake, I know, but there's also a lot of fun to be had on Lake Hartwell. Again, all of this is designed for our fun and then our recreational use. So if you are thinking about exploring Lake Hartwell, Lake Huey, or any of our other surrounding lakes, whether it's 9 days or 90 days from now, my team and I would love to help, and we want to connect with you and tell you about these different lakes and what you can expect, and also to make sure that you make the wisest, safest investment and you know exactly what you're purchasing. So linked in the description below is our number. Also, we would love to connect on Zoom. That's our favorite way to connect, but we'll also do a good old-fashioned phone call or text message or even email if you want to. So let's connect, stay in touch, and by the way, there's so much more to know about Lake Hartwell and our other lakes and our suburbs in the Greenville area. So don't miss out. Before you leave today, tap the bell, subscribe so you can stay connected and never miss out on any news in our area.